Sri Jairam Ramesh to initiate the debate.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'll be very brief since I know honorable members want to leave as early as possible. I rise to speak on the Land Fee Bill 2021. But before I get into the bill, I want to give a brief history because the idea of a DFI is not new in India. It has a long history in India. In fact, the very first DFI, Development Finance Institution, was set up in March of 1948 after the then Parliament, the Constituent Assembly, passed the IFCI Act of 1948 when R.K. Shanmugam Chetty was the finance minister. In 1955, ICICI was established, not by an act of Parliament, but by an executive decision, and ICICI was meant to be in the private sector. In July 1964, when Mr. T.T. Krishnamachari was the finance minister, Parliament passed the IDBI Act, and the Industrial Development Bank of India came into being. So, when the history of industrialization in India is written, the role of IFCI, the role of ICICI, and the role of IDBI is going to be crucial. They have been responsible for the development of Indian business, for the development of Indian corporates, and I think as we launch a new chapter in the DFI, we should recognize the historic role played by IFCI, ICICI, and IDBI. Then, sir, in January 1981, Parliament passed the NABARD Act, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. That was also a development finance institution for agriculture and rural development, and Mr. R. Venkatraman was the finance minister at that point of time. So the NABARD Act was formed. Then in November 1989, when Mr. S.B. Chavan was the finance minister, Parliament passed the SIDBI Act, Small Industrial Development Bank of India, which is headquartered in Lucknow. This was also a development finance institution, and this was passed by an act of Parliament. So all the DFIs I have mentioned, IFCI, IDBI, NABARD, and SIDBI, were created by acts of Parliament after extensive debate and scrutiny in Parliament, and ICICI was entirely in the private sector. So when Dr. Manmohan Singh presented his budget in July of 1991, he set up what is known as the Narasimhan Committee on the financial sector. Mr. Narasimhan was a distinguished banker, a distinguished economist, and they submitted that report, and that report was tabled on the House, in both houses of Parliament, on the 17th of December, 1991. And the Narasimhan Committee came to the conclusion that the era of DFIs is over. The DFIs have played an important role in India's industrialization, but we need to move away from the concept of DFIs for a variety of reasons. And hence, in 1996, when Mr. Chidambaram was the finance minister, the IDFC was created, the Infrastructure Development Finance Company, headquartered in Bombay. And in 2006, another company, the India Investment Infrastructure Finance Company, IIFCL, was created also when Mr. Chidambaram was the finance minister. So the story is that up to 1990, India created DFIs through acts of Parliament. But after 1990, we did not create organizations through statutes. We did not create statutory organizations. We created companies under the Companies Act. This was the model that we adopted. 30 years after Dr. Manmohan Singh's budget, the clock has turned back, and we are going back to the DFI era. And my first question to the Honorable Finance Minister, what has prompted this reversal of path, of going from the idea of a company under the Companies Act to a company sanctioned by an act of Parliament? This is the first important question that the House must address. Why a statutory corporation and not a company under the Companies Act. Second, sir, this bill is a very ambitious bill. The Finance Minister, in her speech, has already outlined what this organization will do. She has provided 20,000 crores in this budget, and she is hoping that in 5 years from now, the loan portfolio will be 5 lakh crores. The initial paid-up capital of this company is going to be 1 lakh crores, and the government shall, not may, shall hold a minimum of 26%. So, my question to the Honorable Finance Minister is, this is a government company. Huge resources are going to be mobilized. No oversight whatsoever. No CBI, no CVC, no CAG. I can understand CBI and CVC, but why no CAG? So in the last 5 years, the number of CAG reports has come down dramatically. In 2014, CAG submitted 55 reports. In 2020, the CAG submitted 14 reports. The CAG is a constitutional body. The Public Accounts Committee is the most important committee of Parliament. And this organization that we are creating, paid up capital of 1 lakh crores, government equity 26%, loan portfolio of 5 lakh crores, no external oversight, no external surveillance, no external monitoring. Madam Finance Minister, sir, I submit to you that this is a most undesirable state of affairs. Not only that, Section 17 of this Act empowers the government to extend sovereign guarantee in the case of a default. No external oversight, no surveillance, no CAG, no monitoring, but government will extend sovereign guarantee. So I fail to understand the logic of this. And I think you're opening, today it is your government, tomorrow it could be any other government, you're creating an act in perpetuity. And I think this idea of creating an act of parliament without parliamentary scrutiny, even before the bill is passed, and no CAG after the bill is passed, and the facility to extend a sovereign guarantee is, in my view, a highly undesirable state of affairs. So there is one phrase in the bill which justifies the lack of external oversight. Act of good faith. The management of this company will be protected for decisions taken as an act of good faith. So what is act of good faith? Who will determine act of good faith? What criteria will be used? One person's good faith is another person's malicious intent. Who will determine this? What is the transparent set of prior agreed criteria to determine what is good faith? So I think this is a very ambiguous phrase that is used in the Act. It needs to be defined in the rules in a much more elaborate manner so that this act of good faith cannot be a catch-all umbrella phrase to justify any decision taken by the management in the knowledge that the government will provide a sovereign guarantee as a last resort. So, the next question I have of the Honorable Minister, what happens to the other organizations? What happens to LIC, which is doing infrastructure financing? What happens to IIFCL, which is doing infrastructure financing? Are we creating a gigantic organization under which all these other organizations will be part? Are we creating, like the Singapore company Temasek, are we creating a giant Temasek? So the political economy of Singapore is different from the political economy of India. You can't have a Temasek type of organizations in a democratic political setup like ours. So what is this creature that we are embarking on today without any scrutiny? without going to the standing committee, without going to the select committee, and having just about 2 hours of discussion on such an important bill. Finally, sir, I wish to say that there is a belief in this government that infrastructure can be built with foreign capital. So economic history shows foreign capital has never built infrastructure in any other country. Indian infrastructure will be built with Indian capital. Foreign capital will have an important role to play. We must mobilize global liquidity. But this notion of giving to foreign capital the prime place in the creation of infrastructure, in my view, is completely misplaced. First of all, it is coming from a political party that has always been deeply suspicious of political capital, but there is a transformation of ideas, and that is inevitable. However, I think the most important contribution that we can make to the availability of funds for infrastructure is to stimulate domestic savings. Domestic savings translate to domestic investment. And I would draw the Honorable Finance Minister's attention, and she's perfectly well aware of it, that India's gross domestic savings rates have been coming down steadily. They were at a peak of 38% of GDP 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and now they're hovering at about 30 to 31% of GDP. Rate, I'm not talking of the volume, I'm talking of the rate. The rate has come down. And I think the biggest challenge for us for enhancing the pool of infrastructure is how do you stimulate domestic savings? You have to stimulate domestic savings and not have this dangerous dependence on foreign funds. So, all expert committee reports in the last 30 years on infrastructure financing have pointed out to one fact which has limited the mobilization of funds for infrastructure. Because infrastructure requires long-term funds, 30-year funds, 40-year funds, 50-year funds. India's biggest problem is not the lack of DFI. India's biggest problem is the lack of a deep and liquid corporate bond market. 98% of all the corporate bonds are placed privately. And unless we develop a broad-based bond market, unless we make it liquid, we are not going to be able to get the pool of domestic savings into infrastructure. The Honorable Finance Minister has a paragraph in her budget speech this year on developing an institutional framework for the corporate bond market. I would like her to elaborate on us, what does institutional framework mean? Will it be another institution? Will it be another act of parliament? Will it be another company? What does the word institutional framework mean for the corporate bond market? So, sir, I close here, once again, deeply, deeply regretting that such an important, far-reaching, and perhaps even desirable bill has not undergone any scrutiny by any standing committee, by any select committee. There has been no discussion. There will be discussion here for less than about 2 hours when everybody wants to leave as early as possible. I wish it had gone through a greater process of consultations. Most importantly, I request the Honorable Finance Minister to revisit the fundamental assumption of this bill, which is no external oversight, no investigating agency, no audit, no external surveillance, and we believe in act of good faith. Who will determine good faith is completely left unanswered. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Syed Jafar Islam. Honorable members, I have been receiving slips just now suggesting they want to participate.